All right, and we're live. Hello, everyone out there in the world. We are recording this live. Hello to anyone who watches it after it's recorded. We are back with our final episode of our first season of Notes on Conscious Leadership, our podcast for the everyday conscious leader out there, just like ourselves. I'm Taylor Coburn. I'm an affiliate coach with Creative Self Mastery. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues, Marc DiFrancia, who is the leader and founder of Creative Self Mastery, and Stanley Fisher and Meehir Patel, both executive coaches with Creative Self Mastery. So since this is kind of the end of our first season, and we're coming up on a topic that's really important to us and that actually kind of encompasses everyday conscious leadership as a whole, which is service. I just wanted to, before I pass the mic to someone else in the room, I wanted to remind us, why we're here, why we're doing this podcast, what we're talking about, and what does it mean to be an everyday conscious leader? So everyday conscious leadership, every day in any situation, we are out in the world, we're humans, we're behaving, we're talking, we're acting. And we have the choice, actually, unlike other animals on this planet, we have the choice to be consciously aware of ourselves, to practice self-awareness, to tune into our inner guidance, to our intuition, to learn about who we're kind of programmed to be and who we actually really are from our heart. All of us have this choice, and with that choice, we also can exercise our innate ability to lead. And not only does that mean leading others, but leading ourselves, and also, even if we choose to follow others, to lead ourselves in being the best follower that we can be, being the best versions of ourselves. So that's what we mean by everyday conscious leadership. That's what we mean when we say we're everyday conscious leaders. We are every day in any situation, including this one right now while I'm recording this podcast. We are having a vision for ourselves, holding the vision, fleshing it out, and we're also being consciously aware of what's driving our behavior, what's motivating us, and our why, and choosing to behave in a way that aligns the most with our higher self, the best version of ourselves, the best self that we want to be. So that's everyday conscious leadership. And we're here on this podcast because we want to bring it out into the world and talk about it and frame it up. And we obviously want people to come and join us and join our community that we've started. It's a global community. We have local hubs, but also an online place. And you can find a link to join us in the description of this video. And yeah, we're also everyday conscious leaders. So we're sharing notes on our everyday conscious leadership. And with all of that said, I am going to give the mic actually to Marc DiFrancia, because today we're talking about service. And I would love it, Marc, if you started us off with a frame up of the premise of service.
I think the first thing that I would say is, a lot of people confuse the word service with servitude. And so they have an aversion to the word. They think that somehow being in service means you're subservient, and that is not the case. And so for us, my definition of service is basically leading the energy to the best outcome for all. Yeah. So most people don't know what's going on in my hometown, but I live in Asheville, North Carolina. 17 days ago, we were hit with Hurricane Helene, and it totally destroyed the city. And when I say destroyed the city, I mean it washed away probably 30 to 40% of the city. Yeah. People have been trapped in their homes for 17 days without food and water, heat, anything, things along that line. And entire communities have been washed away. There are dead zones where the bodies, are collecting in the stagnant water. The air is toxic. The water is toxic. People are being advised to not even let their animals drink out of creeks because the creeks are toxic. Dogs and cats are getting sick or even dying from drinking out of the creeks. And does it give you an idea of how bad it is here? And the reason I bring that up is because the moment that something like this happens, we have a decision. Are we going to be everyday conscious leaders, or are we going to be victims? Are we going to be, followers, unconscious followers? Or are we going to try and make, sound, rational decisions that are free from thoughts and feelings and work more so on structure? Right now, if it weren't for structure, Asheville would be in complete chaos, obviously. And so that's the whole point. When we can put structure in place instead of thoughts and feelings, then we can make better decisions. And that means that we can lead ourselves and other people better. When we want to talk about service, then we say, okay, well, I'm not a leader. I'm just a regular person going about my day. Well, there's a lot of regular people that were going about their days 17 days ago until this disaster hit. And now those people are stepping up in various forms. They're getting food to their neighbors. They're if they've got water, they're inviting people over to take showers and do laundry. Some of the things we're doing here at the sanctuary. People are rising to the occasion in most cases. I'm going to tell you, and don't let this, paint a rosy picture, because this is not a rosy picture, folks. People have not had water for 17 days. Yeah? But I will say that I have never seen people come together in the way that they're coming together now. This is a community that is split right down the middle politically. It's also split right down the middle socioeconomically. And so typically it's an us and them mentality here, especially when you get outside of the actual city of Asheville and you get into the surrounding communities. Those people now, the lines have blurred. The political lines don't matter anymore. Socioeconomic lines don't matter anymore. We're all in this together. And when people decide that they're all in it together, people start stepping up as leaders. Right? Now, what we teach here is conscious everyday leadership, to learn how to be able to master thoughts and feelings so that you can make decisions that will lead the people around you to the best possible outcome. As much as, as Asheville itself is completely destroyed, what I have seen is people rising up to cook food, to use their own money to bring water in, and I've seen agencies coming in and doing the same thing. But these agencies don't have anybody to work for them. People have to volunteer. I'm volunteering at the World Central Kitchen to cook hot meals for people who don't have electricity or water. Right? And what you see there is people learning how to lead the energy to the best outcome right on the spot. People that are average people, not considering themselves leaders in traditional form, stepping up and leading well. Yeah, because when we have a common end result, when we're all working towards the same thing, it's very easy to be in service. Right? We all agree that this is what we're working towards. We all agree that we're going to push our energy towards the best outcome of that particular thing that we're working towards. And so that, to me, is what service is. I see right here in Asheville right now tons and tons of people in service. And then I see the people that need service. Because, not everybody has the resources or the capacity to move the energy to the best outcome. Some people, for them, the best outcome is to be rescued. For them, the best outcome is to follow somebody who they think knows what they're doing. But even that can be a conscious decision. You can choose to be a conscious follower and therefore support leadership consciously. all you have to do is choose to be in service, choose to move the energy to the best outcome for all.
Awesome. Thank you, Marc.
Yeah.
You may go now, Marc. You have done your bit. No, I'm joking.
Honestly, I don't know what, I really don't know what day it is. I don't know. It's been a blur for 17 days. It has just been an absolute blur of just getting up and, doing the things that need to be done, whatever that happens to be. And again, that is, how leadership works. Being willing to bring the outcome, to bring out, to go for those outcomes and to get them, in spite of whether or not you're tired or overworked, or you yourself are in shock from going through a natural disaster. That's true service, is being able to rise above all of that, and move the energy to the best outcome.
Yeah, and I made the title of this episode, The Key to a Well-Lived Life, Service, the Key to a Well-Lived Life, because also when you are able to raise up to that, I've experienced it now quite a few times, when you're serving yourself and others, you actually feel better, even in times that are very challenging and tough. And so life becomes more meaningful and you're more connected to those around you as well.
Yeah, I will say that we, my husband Mike and I are, we're feeling quite blessed. I mean, although we have sustained a tremendous amount of damage to our own property, we still have a house. Many of our friends have lost their homes. And so we feel, quite fortunate. And so what we've done is, blessings to spare, blessings to share is my philosophy, right? I feel like we have blessings to spare, and so we're sharing those blessings. And in the process of doing that, everybody feels better. Everybody feels better. So people have been coming out to the house on Saturdays. We open up the house so people can do their laundry, so they can take a shower, have a hot meal, commune with other people, just feel slightly normal again. And in those moments, I feel like I have a rich and full life. Being able to be in service to other people makes my life feel abundant and full. And because I feel abundant and full, I'm always ready to serve more in any opportunity that I get, because it feeds me. One of my clients, Michelle, is doing 10-hour days delivering food for the World Kitchen. She did 10-hour days in a row. And she's not exhausted. She's energized, because that's what true service does. When you are truly in service and you are giving freely and you are moving that energy to the best outcome for people, and they can feel it and you can feel it, it is energizing for you. It doesn't deplete you. Yeah.
And she's doing that for no money, right?
Yeah, she's a volunteer like the rest of us. She's a volunteer like the rest of us. Everybody is volunteering. Anybody who can volunteer is volunteering. The rest of the people are in tremendous need. There's no way to get to some of these people. There are so many downed trees that they will be isolated for days or weeks to come. There will be no water in the city of Asheville. For when the water comes on, it will have been about 2 to 3 months without water. I don't know if you can even imagine what it's like to live your life having to go into town to get buckets of water so you can flush your toilet, but you can't take a shower, and you can't do your laundry, and you can barely cook, because if you don't have electricity, you can't even do that. Yeah? So there are a lot of people in need of service. And there are a lot of people, to to my heart's happiness, to my joy, there are a lot of people who are absolutely rising to the occasion. I have never seen more everyday conscious leaders in one area of my life. It gives me hope that a movement like this actually can have legs.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love what you were saying, Mark, around the energy and how something me and you haven't talked about in a little while, but I think it's so apt when it comes to serving. And then you kind of create this spirit of generosity. I think service is a massively generative force when it comes to energy. And one thing that Mark and I used to share is like when we were living our truth and we were serving the world with our truth, we get our energy from a higher source, and that's exactly what's been happening over there in Nashville, with everyone kind of just doing their bit and some, like more than just doing their bit. And it really is a case of like, this is an extreme example of how service can really start moving the energy. What I would love to see is that whatever spirit that the city creates off the back of this, it kind of just stays with it and it just lasts. That's what I think. Another thing is about everyday conscious leadership. It's something that lasts forever. It stands the test of time and it's completely sustainable. When you're in service, when you're in true service, everything is sustainable. People are getting resources and energy, their own physiological energy. It's coming out of thin air. This is what's available to us when we are truly in service. And it really separates, even if you're not in a survival situation or in a disaster situation, it really kind of can separate you between being a have and have not. And that's really, for me, like what I'm taking from this. Like everyone is acting like they're behaving and acting as if they have plenty to give. They have the necessary resource and they're acting and sharing those resources freely and wisely. And I think that's the most powerful thing about service. I think we can get so caught up and a little bit too self-absorbed in our own perceived problems, the challenges that we can face. I know that I've been guilty of this when we get too caught up in our own stories and our own narratives. And we kind of err on the side of becoming self-absorbed and selfish. To kind of break free of that and to break free of the thoughts and feelings that might be taking control of our being, the most surefire way to kind of shift is to move into service. How can I, move this energy and not just serve, my own personal truth, but another person? And I find that that's the path of least resistance there is through service. And it's so, I think it's an excellent demonstration of what's possible. People have these qualities. Everyday conscious leadership is available to anyone, and it can be tapped into just through the mechanism of service and the vibration of service alone.
Yeah.
Like we're going to teach a whole bunch of sort of mastery skills and all of these things, and we will do that. But service alone, you will chip away at 90% of any resistance you have in life, any dysfunction you have in life, any problems you have in your life. Service will probably break you free of that pretty much effortlessly. That's been my own personal truth. As you can see, it's the truth for Mark whilst he's out there. Yes, you just have to step up and get on with it. But that doesn't mean it's not coming at a he's not depleted in a dysfunctional way. He's not trying to please anyone. He's not trying to even help. He's truly serving. So he's able to fill his own cup and he's able to fill the cup of others. And that's what service also allows you to have. It's a very hugely reciprocal experience also.
I can speak to that for myself because last week when Hurricane Milton was barreling down onto Florida, Mark called me and he's like, "Hey, you paying attention to the storm?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm used to riding those storms out for the most part. Unbeknownst to me, during the time frame of when I last saw the hurricane to our conversation, it had upgraded to a Cat 5. And I was like, "Yeah, I ain't staying here. That isn't going to serve me. That doesn't sound wise." And Mark was like, "Come on up here." And when I really thought about it, I was like, well, I can't serve my clients if I don't have power. I can't serve myself if I'm not able to take care of myself. And when I thought about coming up here and serving people up here and serving Mark and serving these animals on the sanctuary and the people in this town, it lit me up with a purpose and energy that if I had stayed at home, I would have been sitting with no air conditioning in the heat, miserable, And I think it would have been selfish to ride that out from where I used to prove that I could ride out these storms. And because I'm a Floridian, by the way, yeah, I used to ride out those storms with a bit of selfishness and had something to prove. But to come up here and to serve, and watch how it's been able to watch what it's done for other people, including Mark and Mike, has erode all that dysfunction and what I was thinking and what it could have brought me. Instead, it's brought me something much better in my life, including the people that I'm friends with up here. So.
Yeah. I'm, I just wanted to share a little bit specific example for myself. I mean, I keep looking back and I realize I'm kind of in shock every time I think about it. I've only met these guys last April, Mark, Meehir, and Stanley. I met Meehir 1 month before. Sorry?
A year ago last April.
Oh yeah, April 2023. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but still it's like last year, not this year. And when I realized it, it's like, wow, that's crazy. Because back when I met them, I didn't have any understanding of what service was. I didn't know it at the time because my conscious awareness wasn't where it is now. But I didn't even really understand my impact on other people in the room or in a video call or in a situation. And so, we're talking about this in a quick podcast episode, but this is really what we're talking about is that, when you do become a little bit more aware of yourself and who your heart is, who you are in your heart, you start to learn the difference between being self-absorbed, like Meehir was talking about, where you're just in your problems and fixated on fixing things and how you're feeling and how others are making you feel, where you can actually rise up, like Stanley's talking about, and just be a force of service and love and wherever you are in any situation. And that only last year, that wasn't even a part of my reality. And I had done lots of therapy and I've been on a long personal development journey, but no one ever was like, hey, do you recognize like your impact on people in the room right now? And it was like, oh shit. And that's not who I am at my essence. I'm not someone who wants to just make everybody's time shitty. And so, yeah, that's why I'm being reminded of that, because even yesterday, we had a leadership hike that we do here in Berlin, and, a bunch of people said they were coming, and then one guy showed up, and I was like, in the moment, I was definitely taking it personally. I was like, man, all this energy I've put into this, and then one guy shows up, and it was cold and cloudy, and I traveled an hour and a half. But then when I saw him, I was like, you know what? There's one guy here, and this is the one guy that matters. And I shifted into service, and I said, let's serve the ECL movement. Let's serve this hiking that we're doing, and let me serve myself and this guy. And we had an amazing hike too. So.
Well, I want to share one specific story. So I get up here and I'm working on the farm, and there was a moment where Mark and I were out on the farm and we're talking about plans for the night, and they had an event they needed to go to, and it became obvious that they would be rushing back to try to like take care of dinner for me. And I was like, I'm a big boy, I can handle that. It seems obvious that if you're going to be away and time crunched, why don't you guys go out and have dinner? And it became their anniversary dinner for him and Mike, and being here to serve that and to be, in service to that allowed Mark to experience someone taking care of him for the first time in months, and most importantly, from where their anniversary dinner was sidetracked because of the hurricane stopping it. So that's one example that I really loved about being here, was to be able to provide that space for them.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a good point, Stan, because I mean, it doesn't take much to serve somebody.
Yep.
And Stanley just, looked at the situation, and he knows that, I'm Italian, and, I'm a former chef, professional chef, and people just don't go hungry in my home. So if you come to my house, you're going to eat probably a lot. And so Stanley knows,
Oh yeah.
and he's been here for years. He knows that, I'm going to prioritize getting back from wherever we are. We were actually going to an event, to do some work with the horses so that we can offer some comfort to the people here by finding ways for them to interact with horses. And so, we had to travel for this. We had to go out of state, actually. And I was going to rush back because I wanted to make sure that that my guest had a good meal before the night was over. And he said, "Look, I'm a big boy. I can take care of myself. Why don't you guys just stay down there? There's water and electricity where you are. And why don't you go out to dinner?" And so we were going to go to a little this little bar that has great hamburgers. But again, in service to us, the people that were teaching us were like, don't go there. Go have an expensive meal. Like, go to the best restaurant in town and have a nice, expensive meal. And I'm like, we can't do that. We don't have the funds, the resources. It's not the right time to be doing that. And Mike just looked at me and said, "We didn't get to celebrate our 14-year wedding anniversary. And so I say we go to the fancy restaurant, we celebrate our anniversary." If Stanley hadn't just made that gesture of saying, like, just if he hadn't been in service to us and our well-being, then he wouldn't have made the suggestion to stay in town and have dinner. And we wouldn't have had our anniversary dinner. Now, that might sound like a little thing, but it's not. It was hugely important to us to feel normal for 2 or 3 hours. It was restorative for us to feel normal for 2 or 3 hours. And while I'm talking about that, I do have to mention the flip side of this coin of service, which is when you are not truly in service, when you are improving and not in service, when you are proving that you are a good person and you are trying to move the energy so that you look good, not moving the energy to the best outcome for people, that might happen as part of it, as a side effect. But really, you're in service to you looking good, to you being seen as being a worthy human being. And trust me, the lack of worth is the number one core belief that most people have. And so there are tons and tons of people out there right now that are in service to themselves, in service to proving that they're worthy. And those people are fucking exhausted right now. Yeah? Those people have been proving nonstop for 17 days and they're fucking exhausted. They're sick. They're out of the game now. They're not capable of helping anymore. And they're wearing that. Oh, I wore myself out. Aren't I a good person? Now I have an excuse to not do it anymore. Yeah? That's not service, guys. I've been doing the same thing for 17 days. I am not tired. I am not worn out. I am not stopping. I have not used the word exhausted in a sentence in probably 4 years, maybe 5. Yeah? I don't get exhausted. I used to. But when you live a life of service, as we've said, it's generative and it restores you. And you don't lose anything because the energy comes through you and it goes out of you. And actually, it leaves a little behind. That's what's great about it, right? So there is a big difference, though, between being in service and proving. Proving is not service, no matter how it's disguised. Yeah, and it is certainly not going to lead to conscious leadership.
No, it's not leadership at all, to be honest. Because if you take yourself out of the game, you ain't leading shit. And that's I think a lot of people make that sort of confusion. The moment you start feeling depleted or you start taking something personally or whatever, you're not going to be in service, or you weren't in service to begin with.
Or if you're looking for validation.
Yeah, if you're looking for something back, then you weren't really in service. Now, we all have, all of us here who are working to be in service, we generally have a story, an agreement that it will come back to us in some shape or form. But we're not asking for it in the moment. We're not like, we don't need it in the moment. There's no one-way bargain. There's no sort of uncommunicated expectation that this person needs to give something back to me, or I'm going to serve this person, they have to give me something back. There's none of that. There's none of that whatsoever, because that is not service, right? That is a one-way bargain. Okay. So true service just means, look, I'm going to share my energy. I'm going to share my resources. I'm going to offer my leadership, and it, wherever it goes, and if it moves the energy for me and that other person, or whoever else is involved, to a better outcome, that's all that matters at the end of the day. I know in some shape or form, whether it's directly or indirectly, I will be taken care of. I'll be fine. That's really, we've proved that over and over again. That's kind of what we've seen in reality. That's the lived experience that we have, that it may not be in an immediate feedback that we get for our service, but eventually, like, we pay it really is the essence of paying it forward. And we found it comes back to us in tenfold in some shape or form. But if you're not doing that, if you're having an agenda, like trying to prove your worth or your validation, or trying to look good or whatever, you will be a have not. You're pouring from what they say as an empty cup. And the only reason why your cup is empty is because you emptied it with your agenda. So I strongly recommend that we have strong discernment of where we're coming from when we're truly serving, and whether it is in service that we're actually operating from.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the whole consciousness aspect and getting to know yourself and being self-aware, because it's definitely not so black and white. And the road here to, the being in service and never actually expecting something back is definitely not an easy one, and it's challenging. I would add that, because it's very true what Meehir's saying, but you have to begin somewhere. And so it's not like, just because you ended up doing something and you thought you were doing it from service, and then you notice you're getting exhausted and it was coming from looking from validation, you can actually adjust and correct. And this is what we're looking to build as a community, to come together and support each other in that, actually.
Yes, it's an important thing you just said there, Taylor, about the idea of, adjusting and creating again. So if you realize that, if you had the best of intentions, we say the road to hell is paved with them, right? If you had the best of intentions and you found out that you kind of took things off the path a little bit, just ask yourself, what is going to move the energy to the best outcome for everybody in this situation, and then adjust your behavior and try again. Yeah. And speaking to Meehir's point, look, guys, there's probably, we had some people out over the weekend. There's probably about $250,000, $250,000 worth of damage to my property, and I'm not complaining, because I have a house, and as I say, a lot of my friends don't. But it will affect the future of the sanctuary, and the future of the sanctuary is in jeopardy, because we can't. A lot of the fencing is just right now washed away or suspended in midair, because the land has eroded underneath it. And stopping that erosion and putting in things that will keep that from eroding again that's going to require engineers. We don't have those types of resources. Yeah. But here we are, knowing full well that in a few months we could be out of business, and we may even lose our horses. It doesn't stop us. We are taking all the resources that we have and sharing them with as many people as we can, in service to them. Now, it's not a one-way bargain. I'm not saying, oh, well, 3 months from now, when they're back on their feet, they need to help me. No. It'd be great if they did, but I don't have that expectation. I do have an expectation, as Meehir said, that somehow it will work out for me, because I am a have, right? I behave like a have. I have, and I push it out into the world like with generosity of spirit. And I believe that by doing that, I create a vacuum that brings more in. Yeah. And that's how I have lived my life for the last 15 years or so. Before that, I was have not. I was poor. I was drug addicted. And the only energy that I spent was on getting things for me. Yeah. I was always exhausted, by the way. And to the point where I couldn't even stay awake to drive a car. Yeah? Now I have energy, I have resources, I have everything that I need to be in service to other people. And the more I'm in service, the more I get. So do I worry about what will happen 3 or 4 months from now with the future of the sanctuary? No. I have concerns because there's a genuine problem there. But I'm not worried because I believe that somehow the energy will restore itself because I have pushed that energy out in service to other people, and I believe that the vacuum that creates will bring energy in for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And if any of you out there, we're actually going to wrap up because we are at time. So thank you, Marc, and also thank you, Stanley and Meehir, for all your contributions to the conversation. But if any of you out there are watching this and you do want to support actually and give back to Marc, I'm running a fundraiser, or Meehir and I, or all of us together as Everyday Conscious Leadership, are running a fundraiser right now on GoFundMe.
These guys.
Sorry. Me, Stanley, and Meehir, as Everyday Conscious Leaders,
Yes.
are running a GoFundMe. Now we have that very clear. That is raising funds for the Miss Path Sanctuary charity organization. And that will be linked below. And also, you can always DM any of us wherever you're seeing this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, or reach out via email at admin@everydayconsciousleadership.com. And we can answer your questions there. But definitely check out the GoFundMe and share your resources with us. We would really appreciate that because that's going to go towards the Miss Pat Sanctuary and the restoration, and also everything that Marc and his husband Mike are doing to support and serve the community as it heals and grows from this natural disaster. So yeah. That's a wrap for today. Thank you all for coming and joining us and listening in. And we'll be back most likely next Monday with our next season. It might be that we have a week or two break, but we'll let you know. And thank you guys again for coming, you three, and serving this conversation. And see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
And you.
I know.
Bye-bye.